What is up, Steeler fans? Welcome back to another episode of The Hangover. I'm Daniel. Alongside with me is Shannon White. Shannon, you're not feeling too good. I hope you're feeling better. Outside of that, how was your Super Bowl weekend?
Well, as we were talking before the podcast, I just been sick. Still am, but watching the Eagles win, I was able to watch it all and enjoy it. I went to bed immediately after the game, but that at least made me feel a little better.
There you go. There you go. Yeah, myself included. You know, I got to watch the game this past weekend. I'm feeling better, but for other reasons. For those that aren't aware, I had an incident where my arm I got injured, and so that's getting better. But I was able to watch the game. I wasn't sure I was going to watch it, to be honest with you. I wasn't excited about it. Time came, we put on the game. I got excited for it, and man, the Eagles put on a whooping to the Kansas City Chiefs, 40-22. You know, and to be honest with you, the score 40-22. The game was not that close. There was some garbage time touchdowns there for the Kansas City Chiefs. Surprised any, how dominant that the Eagles were against the Kansas City Chiefs?
Well, it's funny. When they played 2 years ago, I thought the Eagles would beat them then. I was very confident that the Eagles had the most physical, the strongest team in the league, and the most balanced team. Well, they went up against Mahomes, and he made the comeback and he beat them. And you've seen in that game some issues that the Eagles had in their secondary. They didn't have really a strong running game, and if you noticed in that game, Hurts was throwing the ball a lot more. And at that point in his career, that really wasn't his forte. Last night, he was in complete control. And so what happened? I thought was going to happen 2 years ago happened last night.
Watching the game and seeing some of the penalties that went down, I felt like this was finally a fair game called by the referees. I know there was some controversy very early on. I didn't actually get to see the very first play that there was apparently some sort of controversial flag. I saw the second one, and I kept hearing, that was a give me for the first one. I guess they gave the Chiefs some sort of penalty or whatever the case may have been. But outside of those two plays, I thought it was called fairly. The flags that went against the Kansas City Chiefs, I couldn't help but smile and say, it's about time. You got a little taste of your own medicine. And for the most part, I felt like that this was an embarrassing game for the Kansas City Chiefs to have gone in there with such high expectations, with such arrogance, going in saying, "Oh, we're going to do the three-peat, we're going to do this." Which, I mean, obviously, you're going to have that confidence and stuff. But it was a knockback down to reality. I enjoyed the game. It was a good one, and I think that when it comes to how can the Steelers, maybe not so much benefit, but how is there a game plan for the Pittsburgh Steelers out of seeing the victory there for the Eagles? And I think there is. I mean, when you look at Jalen Hurts, he's not the top 2-3 quarterbacks that you think of in the league. He's up there, but he's not the top guy. It's more of a team effort. And I think that kind of gives you, or gives at least me, the thoughts that maybe perhaps Pittsburgh Steelers with an Andy Weidl, with that mentality in mind of building a very good team and having a core team that's going to be strong, like what we saw with the Eagles, kind of gives a little blueprint to what success could be for the Steelers moving forward. What do you think?
If you look at that Eagles roster, they're a juggernaut. I mean, they go like 6 deep on the defensive line, and every guy they bring in contributes. Every guy. And they're huge, and they just bludgeon you. They never blitzed. And they got pressure on over 50% of the pass plays. And they never blitzed. That is the blueprint, because that leaves everybody else in coverage. and Mahomes didn't know what to do. He threw a couple of bad interceptions. But I mean, in all honesty, you see the modern game and modern roster building and modern coaching with the Eagles, and then you have the Steelers. Now, my title for tonight was the Steelers are far from super. And what I mean by that is they're antiquated, they're trapped in the past. Ownership is not in control. The Eagles have made it to 3 Super Bowls in the last 6 years, I guess. And have won 2 with 2 different coaches. They have, totally rebuilt the roster. They had Carson Wentz, who was coming off like an incredible season, and they took Jalen Hurts. They're all the time reloading, retooling that defense line. They take a defense lineman every draft. They focus on the big boys. And when you compare the 2 teams, you see how far away the Steelers are. The coaching it's laughable. It's not even close. And that's very frustrating for a Steelers fan, because here's a team that's made multiple changes, and they've even got Khan, who helped build the Eagles, but I think your hands are tied because it's being built in Tomlin's image, what he wants. See, I keep going back to Tomlin. So,
when it comes to Tomlin, and when it comes to, like, for instance, Jalen Hurts and what you're saying, going back, I was actually talking with my wife throughout the game, and I mentioned to her that Jalen Hurts was a guy that was potentially going to go to the Pittsburgh Steelers. There was a lot of rumors back in that draft that he was going to go. In fact, I think he even mentioned himself that he thought he was going to be going to the Pittsburgh Steelers. Steelers ended up selecting Chase Claypool instead. Jalen Hurts. Well, anywho, do you think that Jalen Hurts would be the same quarterback he is today had he gotten drafted by the Pittsburgh Steelers and been developed under Mike Tomlin?
No. Tomlin can't develop a quarterback. Cannot do it. He's never had to. Ben did his own thing, and they just hired coordinators, and they kind of helped give suggestions and everything, but Ben did his own thing. Tomlin's never had to do that. He's not an offensive-minded coach at all, and I even question his defensive acumen from time to time. So, I just think we're on a real dangerous situation that they're really not going to change anything. And they're going to they're going to draft and have, I think with Waddle and Khan, they'll have another strong draft. But they need a lot of players. This is where you need to accumulate selections. And then you're going to have the coaching staff, especially your assistants, positional coaches that can develop these draft picks. And I'm starting to wonder if that's the case. There's nothing that Hurts does that Fields can't do. And when you look at all the people being suggested to come to Pittsburgh, if you put Stafford in there, and I love Matt Stafford to me is the closest thing to Ben throwing the ball in the NFL right now. I love to watch Stafford throw. But the problem is he's not mobile. And behind our line, he'll get killed. He will not play a whole season. What you can do is use the blueprint that Waddle knows from Rosenbaum, where he learned it, and stick with Fields and strengthen the positions. They're going to have to continue to strengthen the offensive line and the defensive line and the secondary. And that will help you improve faster than anything else that they can do right now. Because if you bring in another quarterback like Stafford, you're starting over all over again.
Yeah. No, I definitely agree. And I think that, Hurts winning and the style of quarterback that he is definitely going to give you or probably is a win for the Justin Fields camp. As far as, hey, look, you surround yourself with a quarterback that can do can be a threat with his legs and his arm, can make some throws, and you surround that quarterback with some good talent around him. You can go pretty far. When it comes to the defensive side, I know that you mentioned that the Steelers and Mike Tomlin need to take a page out of the Eagles playbook, but they've kind of done that though. They've not done very many blitzes. The Pittsburgh Steelers have. In fact, that's kind of one of the reasons why they said it during the program was the fact that they had a young secondary, the Eagles, that is, which is one of the reasons why they weren't doing any blitzing. And there wasn't a lot of familiarity there between the players that were back there. And it felt like that's kind of something that we'd heard with the Steelers, the safeties constantly, having that time frame where they were out, Beanie Bishop and the nickel cornerback being a position that was also a rotating door there of players coming in and out. To me, I mean, it just seems like you got to get some better players than up front. Cam's good. I mean, I think he's great. Keanu Benton, he needs to step it up a little bit. But, I do think that what this means is that the Pittsburgh Steelers need to probably target defensive line early on in this upcoming draft to have somebody like a Jalen Carter or a Jordan, the Jordan fella, also from Georgia, the big guy. I can't remember his full name there.
Jordan Davis.
There you go. Yeah, he Brian Anthony Davis, his other third son. He was a guy that I was really hoping that the Pittsburgh Steelers were going to go and grab. End up not doing so, but you need some guys like that to apply pressure. I know that both of those guys, Sweat and the other guy on the edge, I think those guys are even going to be free agents here soon, if not this year. But constant pressure with just four individuals. Now, is that the Eagles players or was that the Chiefs offensive line not being the greatest? I'm not sure, but you're going to have to apply that type of pressure and have the 8 guys dropping back. That's how they were able to get the interceptions that they got, in my opinion. The pressure with so much congestion in the secondary. I'm not sure the Steelers had the players for that. Do you think they? What they got to do now?
Well, I mean, you got Hayward, who's not the pass rusher he once was.
Correct.
Benton, we expected big things this year, and he didn't deliver. Ogunjobi should be cut. And when they do take a defensive lineman, it's usually late, so they're going to have to change that up. They got to get bigger in the middle, just like they got to get bigger on the offensive line. The Eagles have the biggest line in the NFL. Now, it's not just size. They're good. But when you look at their line and look at our line, the only guy that could play for the Eagles is Frazier. Everybody else would be sitting on the bench.
Mm-hmm.
And so, I mean, one play really stood out to me, Daniel. When Hurts threw that interception, he had pressure in his face, but he short-armed that throw. I mean, it came up good, 10 yards short?
Oh, if not further. But yeah.
Yeah, and it was an easy interception. And now, if that had happened to the Steelers, Tom would have been like, back away, get conservative, protect the ball, not the Eagles.
Yeah, no, I agree with you. That play there also was just a bad decision. I don't think he should have made that. It was a lot of pressure in his face. But that's what you have to do when you're going up against any quarterback, whether they're great or not, is you put pressure in their face. That's going to make some bad decisions, and that ended up being one of them for the Eagles there. But you're absolutely right. If the Steelers were in that same predicament, they would have gone into shutdown mode. All right, let's not make another mistake. Let's not beat ourselves. Let's play not to lose instead of playing to win. And that doesn't fly, in my opinion. But you think the Steelers could have put up a better match for the Eagles in that Super Bowl than what the Chiefs did, or do you think it would have been a very similar outcome?
No, Steelers got killed. I mean,
I would have thought so too.
I mean, it's like the Chiefs said Barkley is not going to beat us.
Mm-hmm.
And they shut him down. He did not break any long runs, big plays. And they made the rest of the Eagles offense beat them.
Yeah.
And they did. So if you're one-dimensional in any way, or you have a huge weakness like the Steelers didn't have a real receiver.
Yeah.
You get in Pickett's head and he just quits.
Yeah.
I mean, there's games that I don't even know why you send him out there. I think that it would have been way worse.
Yeah, no, I agree. Just some Super Bowl questions for you real quick before we go to our break. What did you think about the commercials? Anything stick out to you as far as commercials go? You impressed?
Nothing.
None.
I was telling my son today, I was like, that's the first time that nothing really, was super funny or, like the Budweiser commercials or there's always something that's either heart touching or really funny or it was just nothing. I mean,
None.
Anybody that tuned in to watch the commercials had to be disappointed.
Were you standing on your toes there when they were doing the Manning field goal there for FanDuel? Eli versus Peyton.
I did not see that.
I watched it. I'm not gonna lie, I saw that. Eli won on the second attempt. It was he would have made it from 30 yards out. It was an impressive kick.
I was shocked that, just real quick, that he didn't make the Hall of Fame on his first try. When most quarterbacks have won 2 Super Bowls, especially that were considered the face of the franchise for quite a few years.
Mm-hmm.
And beat Patriots teams that were dominant. I was shocked. I thought he would have made it, but who knows?
Do you think that hinders Ben's opportunity or chance to be a first ballot Hall of Famer?
I don't, because you was talking earlier. Hurts has never been considered a top 2 quarterback, and I wholeheartedly agree with that.
Mm-hmm.
There was a lot of times back in Ben's prime that people had him barely in the top 5, but obviously I thought he was much better, and I had him ranked much higher. He did what he could do with what he had, and there was years that he played behind offensive lines that none of these guys would have survived, and he had it all. But the main thing is, as Bradshaw said on the pregame, is how many titles did they win? Guys, put up huge numbers, but how many times did they win the title? And no, I think Ben was unique. Everything about him, his persona, his size. No, I think that he'll make it on the first time. But I was just shocked that, because if that's the case, then Phillip Rivers shouldn't sniff the Hall until the other guys are in.
I was going to say, Phillip Rivers is next, right? He's going to be this upcoming year, and then it's Ben after that.
Yeah.
It could be possible that Ben's the first quarterback from the 2004 draft to be inducted into the Hall of Fame. I would have thought that Rivers and Manning, Eli would have been for sure first round or first ballot Hall of Famers, just because of, like you mentioned, with Eli beating those Patriot teams, especially the one that was undefeated.
That's what I'm saying. Yeah.
Some of the stuff that he did. And then with Rivers, he doesn't have the hardware, but he does have some, a lot of the records and things of that nature. So it'll be interesting to see. I don't think it'll have an effect either. I think that Ben will end up being a first ballot Hall of Famer, first year ballot.
When you got a guy like Joe Namath in the Hall of Fame, just being honest, I ain't taking away nothing that the man did, but it was all based on that one game and that guarantee.
That's true.
Other than that, nothing matches up. He should be in the Hall of Fame. Now, see, I don't think he should be about just statistics and just numbers. The big number is when you finish the season on top of the mountain.
Yeah.
Because I remember Jameson Winston led the league in passing yards and touchdowns, but he also led the league in interceptions that year. But you know what I'm saying. Statistics can be deceiving.
They sure can. They sure can. And one last question I got for you is I'm just curious because I'm sure you were, but there was a moment where I think Taylor Swift was on the screen and she was getting booed by so many. Were you joining in on the booing from your home when that occurred?
No, I'm like, I'm not a fan, but that's an understatement. But no, I mean, I'm not going to do that, and because I don't care enough to do that. But yeah, because like I said, I'm not a fan. I think she's destroyed Kelsey. I mean, he didn't put the work in. You could just tell. He don't even look like the same player, and he aged very quickly because he didn't stay in top shape in the offseason. And you can't just, as we get older, you can't do it. You can't wait till the last minute and try to do it.
Yeah.
And so yeah, she was the worst thing ever happened to him. And so they was joking last night. I seen a clip. It said she was real interested in meeting Cooper DeJean, the young guy that got the interception touchdown return on his birthday. She was real interested in meeting him. I thought that was hilarious.
Well,
the next victim.
Right. I had seen somewhere she was like an Eagles fan before. I guess she met Kelsey. And then now obviously she's a Chiefs fan. But yeah, I actually didn't see it. I just saw the clip that was circulating afterwards. I guess they were booing her, and she's like, "Are they booing at me?" I guess it's never happened before. But the Eagles fans showed up in numbers there at the Super Bowl. Overall, man, I thought the Super Bowl was all right. The halftime show, I couldn't understand a word what the guy was saying. During the show, I didn't understand it. I know there's a lot of people that were saying a bunch of different things about other rappers and stuff. I didn't get it, but overall, I thought it was okay. Probably maybe in the bottom 10 Super Bowls that I've seen. I didn't find it very interesting or anything like that. Where would you put in your list of Super Bowls? And then we're going to take our break and come back with some more information on the Steelers.
No. Are we talking about the halftime or the Super Bowl in general?
The Super Bowl in general, altogether, the halftime show, everything.
Well, I enjoyed the game because the Eagles were winning. And it wasn't competitive, but I didn't want it to be competitive because Mahomes will pull it out at the end.
That's true.
And so halftime show was ridiculous. I mean, I'm old. I couldn't understand a thing that was being said. I had no idea what was going on. They're saying it was artistic and brilliant, and he was this and this and this and that, and I'm like, well, if y'all could understand it, it wasn't English, so I don't know what it was, but it was awful. But that's my opinion. Everybody has a different opinion. But no, I did not like it.
No, I was not a fan either. But yeah, well, we're going to take a quick break. When we get back, we're going to talk about some of these rumors that have been spreading about who the Steelers maybe end up interested in as far as receivers, wide receiver 2, quarterbacks, and etc. Don't go anywhere. We'll be right back after a few words from our sponsors. Yeah, we're back. Welcome back, everybody, to The Hangover. I'm Daniel. Alongside with me, as always, Shannon. Before we get back into the conversation, I'll remind you guys of our website, SteelCurtainNetwork.com, your one-stop shop for Pittsburgh Steelers news and coverage. Go check it out. It's a new website, new platform. Check out the new screen. You can go in there, find all the articles and everything in between, and all your get all your Steelers needs fixed. Well, anyways, back into the conversation. There's a wide receiver who the Steelers have been interested in, who's now being being allowed to have go talk to some teams. Deebo Samuel from the 49ers has been given permission to talk to teams about a trade. And one of the biggest or where everybody thinks that he may land is the Pittsburgh Steelers. How excited would you be for Deebo Samuel to finally find his way to the Pittsburgh Steelers?
Well, it's funny. This happens a lot. Guys that I want come available 2 years later when they're no longer what they once were.
Mm-hmm.
And then they're going to be expensive and they're not the same player anymore. Now, if you'd asked me 2 years ago, I'd have been like, yes. Even last year, a lot of the trades opportunities, I poo-pooed on them because I didn't think we had a passing attack to take advantage of getting a top receiver. So I didn't want to give up much. And I still don't think we're going to have that kind of passing attack. So I would rather them try to get a better value and somebody that I think that Samuel's style of play, he's built like a running back. He kind of runs like a running back. And, when the speed goes, it's going to go. And he's stayed hurt a lot last year. And I'm really not interested in him now.
Yeah, I wouldn't be. I'm not very interested in him either. He's who was it? I think it was Pat McAfee that mentioned one time that Mike Tomlin said that he wanted him when he's gotten older and degraded a little bit or whatever. And it feels like this might be one of those situations where you're gonna get somebody for some of the things that he did in the past, not necessarily for what he could potentially be bringing you this season. He dealt with a lot of injuries as well. I know that but there's a lot of conversation between him and Cooper Kupp as being guys that would end up potentially landing with the Pittsburgh Steelers. There's been a lot of conversation about them going back to the trade deadline this past offseason or this past season. If you had your choice between those two, between Kupp and Samuel, which one would you go for?
Kupp.
You go with Kupp, even though
I think he's
Kupp's a little older, isn't he?
Yeah, I think that Kupp is a very precise route runner. I think he can still get open. And he's got great hands and he's a great blocker, which is something that I think the Steelers are going to need to do. Because if they bring Fields back and they upgrade at running back, then they need to do RPOs. And I think Kupp is a better fit. We got Chris Godwin, who might be available. Well, he is available as a free agent. You know what I mean? So that's another guy that I really like. A veteran wide receiver. It's not a troublemaker. Just goes out and plays. And he's a former champion. So I like those guys. And so there's a couple guys. I mean, Higgins, it's great, but he's going to be super expensive. So the Steelers going to need that, not at this point. You got Amari Cooper. I think he's a good guy, but I mean, if the price was right, but I think Godwin and Kupp would be interesting.
I do too. I think Kupp would definitely be a guy that, Kupp, I think would be your more of your slot guy. I'm not necessarily seeing him as your wide receiver number 2 that much. And this still kind of leaves a question mark there. Well, maybe. I mean, Arthur Smith's offense really doesn't highlight too many receivers. And so, I guess you really don't need that next level receiver out there if you have George Pickens and Kupp out there. But, if one of them gets hurt, I guess you can rely on the other one. But I think if Pickens goes down, you're going to get yourself in some trouble still. But Pickens, going into his 4th year, this is his rookie contract. There's a lot of rumors out there that he may end up getting dealt via trade. If not, do you potentially see any issues with Pickens going into this season, maybe holding out or anything like that? I have a hard time seeing the Steelers, extending him this offseason, especially given the, some of the on the field and off the field stuff that was happening. Not necessarily off the field, but between the after the whistle stuff. There we go. With George Pickens, do you see any? Do you see this last year of his contract going in fairly smoothly, or how do you think that's going to play out?
Well, I've already said I've lost all faith in Pickens.
Uh-huh.
I would my choice to be to try to get some capital out of him and trade him and just start new. I mean, the Steelers realistically need to pick up 3 wide receivers, minimum. So you can pick up 1 free agent, 2 in the draft, or 2 free agents and 1 in the draft. But that they really need more picks. They need a couple of defensive linemen. They need an upgrade in the secondary, and they definitely need another running back. There's a rumor, people talking about maybe Harris coming back. Why the holy heck would anybody think that Harris is coming back? If you haven't seen enough by now, then I don't know what to tell you.
Well, Harris is definitely a Mike Tomlin guy, and there have been players that have stayed on the team a lot longer. Dan McCullers, I think, is one of them, who I think a lot of folks would have thought that would have seen his time with the Steelers end year after year, and he continued to make the team and the roster. I think that if Najee doesn't get any calls and he gets you get a good deal for him, I can see him back. I just don't understand. Maybe he'd have to. There's had to be an acceptance of a new role. Because I don't think he'd be the guy that you're going to want to feature out there with Jaylen Warren. I think he'd be a guy that you may be bringing in, late in games to kind of wear down the defense. But even at that, I mean, are you going to see Najee out there on special teams if you have him out there not as your running back 1, if he's your RB2, 3, or specialty back? Is he going to be a guy that's going to be out there on special teams? I don't think so. I mean, I haven't seen him out there much at all. I don't think I've ever seen him on special teams.
He can't do kick returns. I mean, he has no speed.
No.
I mean, it's just not a fit. I mean, I appreciate his effort the last few years, but no, it's time. He needs to go.
Yeah. No, I agree. I think the Steelers are going to end up, highlighting that position. The running back position in the draft. I think that's probably going to be somewhere in the 3rd round or so. That we'll probably see something like that. I'm hoping at least, where they go in the first couple rounds, I'm not sure. I know that we've been mentioning a lot, Justin Fields, that he may be returning, but it hasn't happened yet. The Steelers haven't gone out there and signed him. There's been a lot of rumors that have gone out about the quarterback position. One rumor was that it's going to be Russ. Russ was coming back, and then no way Russ is coming back. I think that's the one thing that we've heard, or that I've heard most right now, is that there's no way that Russell Wilson is going to come back. And then now I'm also hearing, because Aaron Rodgers is getting cut, some of the media and the talking heads pointing towards Aaron Rodgers. I've also heard a familiar name of Mason Rudolph being thrown out there as a potential quarterback to return. To me, it just seems like a lot of uncertainty if there's so many names that are being thrown out there. And
I think that's a lot of agent talk.
Do you?
I think they throw out stuff like that to start rumors and try to get people thinking about their guy and make other teams think they're, I mean, that's all I think it is.
Yeah, it's quite possible. If it ends up being Fields, when do you think that happens? When can we expect that? Because I know, and I understand a lot of people are saying, well, hey, if I was Fields, I want to, see what's out there, see what's going on. But that's not really been the way things have gone down when it comes to the quarterback position for the Pittsburgh Steelers. Mr. Trubisky signed fairly quickly. Russell Wilson, as soon as they gave him the opportunity to go out there and speak and talk to other teams, and he spoke to the Steelers, he was signed. Mason Rudolph was a guy that they spoke highly about last year, said that we're going to bring him back. They didn't even offer him anything until the very, very end, and that's after they had already made their deal with Russ, etc. And so, if it hasn't been out there for me, I don't know. I have a hard time buying that's what's going on. That they're going to be like, all right, well, they're going to allow him to go out there and and test free agency, so to speak, if he is their guy. So when do you expect it to happen? And if it doesn't happen by a specific time, what are your thoughts about the quarterback position? I think you're muted. I see you talking, but I don't
Yeah,
hear you.
I'm
Oh,
sorry. I was confident, so I hit mute.
oh, gotcha,
Uh,
gotcha.
yeah, I don't think there's a reason to wait. They have, but you can sign your own guys immediately.
Correct.
And I would like to see them. They really need to know: is it Arthur Smith coming back? And he wanted Fields. If Fields, likes playing for Smith, I think you get that out of the way, and then you can kind of focus on your draft positioning, and what you in your free agency. And we know they're not going to make a lot of changes in the coaching, so they're going to have to improve by building the talent. And so let's just quit messing around, get a contract that both parties can live with, and get the deal done.
Yeah, I agree, because I mean, at the end of the day, you can't do anything without the quarterback situation being figured out, right? Because I mean, if you're gonna spend X amount of money, you need to know how much money you have left to put the other pieces around. And the biggest component there is going to be the quarterback position. You really don't want to do anything without that position, without that taken care of first. At least in my opinion. And so I would hope that I would hope that they would get this thing taken care of sooner than later. To me, if we get any closer, or if we get close to free agency or tampering, it's not going to be Fields. The closer we get there, the less likely, in my opinion, it's going to be him, and the more likely it's going to be somebody outside of the organization. Because like I said last year, I was I would have bet a lot of money that it would have been Mason Rudolph on the roster, based on the things that Rooney and Tomlin were saying at the end of the year, and I would have been out of a lot of money. Not necessarily saying that he would have been the quarterback, but I would have thought for a fact that they were going to bring him back, and that he would have been competing for a position based on the things that they were saying, and it just ended up not happening.
I think we see the Steelers. I always call it coach speak. Or Tomlin speak, because he says a lot without saying really anything. Yeah. But I think the Rooneys, they have that ability too. They kind of pull the wool over our eyes. They deflect, and they just think it's nobody's business what they're going to do, and they don't even want to give you a hint. And so when they do, you can usually take it, with a grain of salt.
Yeah, no, I agree. The last quarterback that the Steelers have been kind of tied to, that I think it would be, I don't want to say worst case scenario, because I don't think he's that bad of a quarterback. It just didn't have the greatest year. It doesn't have the greatest of, image right now. And that's Aaron Rodgers, 40-some-year-old Aaron Rodgers. He's getting released by the Jets. A lot of talk about him landing in a couple of different places. If he lands with the Pittsburgh Steelers, would that be an improvement, in your opinion?
I want nothing to do with Aaron Rodgers.
Right. No, and I get it. I don't think he's going to end up being a guy. To me, he doesn't sound like the guy. How can I put it? If the Steelers are having some problems with George Pickens and some of the things and the antics that he has and the things that he says, or Naji Harris and the things that he's may have said in the past, I think you're really taking a few steps backwards if you go with Aaron Rodgers.
Last night, the Chiefs defense did not play a bad game. I mean, they accomplished their objective. They stopped Barkley.
Mm-hmm.
And it wasn't like, Hurts had 300 some yards and 5 touchdowns. It's how many of the big plays we look back and he moved around, extended the play, completed a pass to get it to 3rd and 1, 4th and 1, tush push. Late in the game, he would take the snap, and then he'd run up the middle and pick up a couple of first downs. keep the clock moving. I mean, again, Hurts doesn't do anything spectacular. And I still think the Steelers owe it to themselves to see what they have in Justin Fields. And can he run a similar offense with an upgrade at running back and wide receiver? And, still address the offensive line. You should have Troy Fautanu back.
Mm-hmm.
And so if they do that, if it doesn't work and they go 5-12, well, you got a good draft pick for next year where there's a lot of quarterbacks in the draft. So right now, Fields is the answer.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, when you look at the other quarterbacks that are going to be available, or potentially available, it's not. I don't think there's anybody that's going to move the needle. There's no needle movers there, in my opinion, based on what I've seen. Right? I don't know. Kyle Murray is another guy that people are talking about. I don't really want anything to do with him either. As far as a potential trade. And no, I think at the end of the day, the Steelers are going to kind of be in a situation where they're like, all right, Justin Fields may be, your best bet. He wasn't that bad. I mean, he puts you in a position of, you had a winning record with him there. He's familiar. He's got another, he's got a full year now under his belt with Arthur Smith. He himself said that he didn't have a lot of opportunities being in the same offense for more than 1 year. And so that he'd be looking forward to staying in the same offense and progressing and maybe taking that next step forward. He hasn't had an opportunity to have a sophomore year when it comes to being in an offense. Everything has been 100% brand new every year, going back to his time in Chicago. And so, there's some upside there. And like you mentioned, if it goes bad and next year's quarterback class is supposed to be a lot better than this year's, this might be the year that, it's going to be high reward or it's high risk, high reward, because at the end of the day, if you put all your apples or you put all your eggs in Justin Fields and it doesn't work out, you have an opportunity of picking in the top 5. I mean, that's what happened last time he was a starter.
People say that we're spoiled Steelers fans.
Yeah.
Okay. Now that we couldn't handle a 5-12 season, we had no seasons. Eventually Noel stepped away and Kyer come in. He made it to a Super Bowl relatively quickly. A new voice, a new vision. He built the team. He just couldn't find a quarterback. He got the quarterback. He won the Super Bowl. He had to step away for medical and family reasons. They hired Tomlin. Tomlin comes in. He wins the Super Bowl. He goes to another one. But all these times, new voice, new vision. But eventually that gets stale. It gets old because the Steelers, unlike any franchise in all sports, hold on to their coaches forever. And I think people just need to really sit back and look when there has been a coaching change, how drastic it's been and how quickly they've improved. And I think in each case, now Cowher hung around to win that title. And then I think he was done. He's never coached since. But I just think that we have to consider what's best for Tomlin, what's best for the franchise, and I think there needs to be a new voice. I really do.
Well, I mean, I don't disagree with you. I just don't think it'll happen for the next 3 to 4 years. I think we're stuck here. I think that even if, let's just say, we run it with Justin Fields and the Steelers have their first losing season since before Ben Roethlisberger, then I think the Roonies are going to give Tomlin that opportunity to build back up. I mean, even Bill Cowher, it took a 6-10 year for him to get into, being the 11th selection to get Ben Roethlisberger. So,
but the difference is, now we know that Coach Snow was a micromanager, but he had quality coordinators, and he let them handle things. And then he got involved when he needed to. Cowher was not a micromanager. He was a rah-rah, enthusiastic, defensive-minded, aggressive coach.
Mm-hmm.
Tomlin is the ultimate micromanager. He's a father figure. He coddles these guys. We talk about Jalen Carter. Young man's an incredible player for the Eagles.
Mm-hmm.
I wouldn't have touched him with a 10-foot pole. And no interest in drafting him. Because if he'd have come to Pittsburgh, all them attitude problems and all them red flags he had at Georgia, he would have had in Pittsburgh.
Mm-hmm.
Because you've got your head coach who thinks he's your daddy, and he's coddling you, making excuses for you, covering up things you're doing that we find out years later. That is not the way to handle guys that are making millions of dollars to play a game. And that's why there's no discipline. And these teams, we see such a lack of effort at times. And instead of pulling them, I don't care if you lose, you sneak into playoffs and lose immediately, or you go 5-12. Either way, you still lost. You didn't achieve your objective. But one way, you get higher draft picks. So, eventually you got to start facing reality. And the league is set up that the bad teams get the better picks.
Yeah. And unfortunately, you have to have a bad year to get somebody pretty good. Or you give up some stuff. You know what I mean? There's other ways to do it. You can sell the farm. There's more than one way to skin a cat, so to speak. But doing what the Steelers have been doing, it just kind of seems like you're going to be stuck in this purgatory for a long time, being kind of stuck in picking between 17 and 22. Not getting into a situation where you're high enough or you're good enough to win a Super Bowl, and you can't get the players because you're not bad enough to get a player to get you over the hump. And so that's just kind of where it's been for the Pittsburgh Steelers for a while. I hate to be just downer so much. You know what I mean? The season's over. It's time to get optimistic. It's just it's hard right now because there's no answers. You know what I'm saying? And then there's just so many questions, especially with like the quarterback position, and even with that, I'll be honest with you. Like I've said it before, even when the Steelers went 4-2, they won that game. I think it was against the Raiders. I was ready to see what Russ had. I'd gotten tired of seeing, the poor offense, the inability to get it into the end zone. When Russ came in, there was a spark there. The offense looked a lot better than it had been. And then it kind of went back down. But, that consistent 25, 27 points a game is, I think, where we want to be at. And I didn't see that with Justin Fields before. And Russ, he dropped off. And, if those are still your only options going into next season, it's hard to be optimistic.
Oh, it definitely is. I just, I would like to see the RPO. I would like to see Fields use his legs more. And then later on set up, passing out of this as far as a true drop back, because he can't throw the ball. I'd like to see the Steelers on 3rd or 4th and 1 use a touch push. But their line ain't big enough. It ain't strong enough.
Just put in Darnell Washington as the touch guy, and we'll see.
Fields could do it, but I don't know if they got anybody else could do it.
Yeah.
But I just think, I want to keep the faith, but when you repeat the same thing season after season after season, eventually you got to start looking at reality.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, you definitely do. And, this is just the start of the 2025-2026 season. It just started with the ending of the Super Bowl. A lot of news to come here in the next couple of weeks. So make sure you guys tune in, hit that like button, hit that subscribe button, ring that notification bell. I'm sure as soon as, the news starts to populate, we start getting some answers. everybody else will be, or at least I will be, start getting that optimistic feeling about the team again and where they'll be going. It's just kind of tough when you see, your team lose in the manner that they did this past year, and then, um, and then you see some teams throughout the entire postseason and how good that they are, especially offensively, and how far the Steelers have to go to catch up to some of those teams. It's a little demoralizing at points, but hey, it just takes a few players, and who knows?
You got to start somewhere.
Exactly. Maybe the light bulb will switch. The light will turn on with Fields, and things will be a lot better. But you just got to keep up the faith with the team. That's all I'm going to do. Do you got any final words for everybody there, Shannon, before we let everybody go?
Again, I know that some people get frustrated. We love our community, and I know people like to come and they want us to be optimistic and rosy, but you can always count on me to tell my honest observations and opinions. And I'm not doing it to bring anybody down. I'm just saying, before you can fix the problem, you got to realize you got one.
That is true. That's the first step, and hopefully Steelers start making some right steps and some moves. Well, appreciate everybody. I'll be back on Saturday for the State of the Steelers. It's on the audio only side, so make sure you go check that. Shannon will be back on Pump Your Brakes, which is on Wednesday night. Shannon, if you can, send us out, my man.